Most people think of a glass of wine as harmless. After all, it's even been praised as heart healthy. But after 65, that same glass doesn't act the way it once did. With age, lean muscle decreases, body water drops, and the liver clears alcohol more slowly. That means alcohol hangs around longer, raising blood levels higher from the same amount. Many health authorities now recommend lower limits for older adults for this very reason. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. In this video, you'll see the clear signs to watch for, how alcohol mixes with common medications, and simple swaps that protect your health without sacrificing social life. And it all starts with understanding why one drink after 65 can feel so different from the one you remember. Why the same drink hits harder after 65. Here's the simple truth. Alcohol may be the same substance, but the body you bring to it after 65 makes the experience entirely different. A single drink now has more impact than it used to, and the reasons are rooted in clear biological changes that come with age. First, older adults carry less body water and lower lean mass compared to their younger years, because alcohol distributes into water rather than fat. Less total water means that the same glass produces a higher concentration of alcohol in the bloodstream. The drink hasn't grown stronger, but your body has become less equipped to dilute it. Second, liver metabolism slows with age. The organ that once processed alcohol relatively efficiently now works at a slower pace, so the ethanol remains in circulation longer. Instead of clearing between dinner and bedtime, one glass can linger into the night, raising the risk of unexpected impairment long after you've stopped drinking. Third, the brain and body grow more sensitive to alcohol's effects with each decade. Nerve signaling slows, balance becomes more fragile, and cognitive performance is more easily disrupted. That means the same mild buzz you shrugged off in middle age can now interfere with walking, driving, and even thinking clearly in ways that feel disproportionate to the amount consumed. Put together, these mechanisms explain why one familiar glass can feel unfamiliar now. A younger version of you might have needed several drinks before losing coordination, but later in life, even moderate intake can produce a noticeable change. Think of it this way. A single serving of beer or wine that once meant light relaxation may now feel closer to a hangover in motion. This shift is not evidence of weakness. It's physiology. The reduced water in the body concentrates alcohol. The slowed liver keeps it present for longer, and the more vulnerable nervous system amplifies its impact. Every one of these changes works in the same direction, toward greater impairment from less alcohol. That's why old assumptions about tolerance can't be trusted. The "I know my limits" mindset doesn't align with the biology of aging, because the limit itself has moved. What used to be safe on a Friday night in your 40s may not be safe in your 70s under the same circumstances. The takeaway is practical. If you still enjoy drinking, recognize that moderation looks different with age. Don't assume past patterns apply now. If you take medication or live with chronic conditions, the safest course is to check with your doctor or pharmacist about what amount, if any, is reasonable. And while feeling tipsy sooner may sound like a minor inconvenience, the consequences go further than the buzz itself. Subtle balance issues, slower reflexes, and impaired judgment feed directly into risks most older adults already worry about. That connection is what we need to look at next. The fall risk nobody talks about. Most older adults tend to worry more about broken hips than about hangovers. Yet alcohol quietly connects the two in ways that often go unnoticed. For people over 65, the glass that seems small and harmless often carries a hidden cost. Alcohol works against already changing bodies, dulling reflexes, impairing coordination, and reducing stability in situations that once felt routine. What feels like light relaxation can in practice shift balance just enough to make a sudden fall far more likely. The reality is straightforward. Aging naturally reduces muscle strength, slows reaction time, and can limit vision. Alcohol adds another layer by interfering with the brain's ability to send and process signals quickly. The result is slower corrections when the body wobbles or missteps. Even ordinary actions, walking across a carpet, stepping off a curb, or moving through a familiar hallway, become riskier when alcohol delays that tiny but critical reaction window. For older adults, the difference of a split second is often the difference between steady footing and a serious fall. The consequences of those falls go far beyond bruises. When younger adults trip, recovery is usually quick and uncomplicated. In older age, however, reduced bone strength and slower healing make the outcomes dramatically different. A fall that might once have meant a sore wrist could now mean a fracture that requires hospitalization and a long rehabilitation. Hip fractures, in particular, carry some of the most severe consequences, frequently leading to months of recovery, reduced mobility, and a heightened risk of losing independence. For many, the injury is not just a physical setback. It shifts daily routines, confidence, and entire living arrangements. Illustrating this is not difficult because examples are everywhere. Imagine a man at a community gathering who insists he's still light on his feet after a few drinks. The music makes him bold enough to prove it, yet one misplaced step combined with dulled reflexes leaves him on the ground, not laughing but injured. Though the details change, the pattern repeats across countless similar scenarios. The cheerful environment, the casual confidence, the belief that just a couple isn't an issue, all unravel quickly when the body doesn't respond the way it once did. Hard numbers confirm what these stories suggest. Emergency department data clearly shows a rise in alcohol-related fall injuries among older adults. One national study found that between 2011 and 2019, alcohol-associated fall visits to the emergency room for people over 65 increased by an average of about 7.5% per year. That steady climb is not the result of rare extremes or binge drinking. In many cases, it begins with a single glass. What to one person feels like only a gentle buzz is clinically enough to increase the likelihood of a sudden trip that ends in a fracture and an ER visit. Equally important is the way biology stacks the odds. As bones lose density, especially in women more prone to osteoporosis, even moderate impacts become harder to withstand. Pair fragile bones with weaker muscles that can no longer cushion a fall and add alcohol's interference with balance, and the likelihood of a serious injury rises dramatically. Once a fracture occurs, recovery takes longer than it used to, and many never fully regain the autonomy they had before the accident. For older adults, independence is often measured in their ability to walk unassisted, shop for themselves, or navigate stairs. All of that can change in one miscalculated step. This is why the risks tied to alcohol and falling are often more devastating than the hangover we typically associate with drinking. The real cost is not measured in a few hours of discomfort, but in months of rehabilitation, loss of confidence, and dependency on others. Families adjust schedules to help, social lives shrink, and daily freedom erodes. The trade-off between a brief drink and lasting consequences becomes uncomfortably clear. Avoiding that trade-off doesn't necessarily mean abandoning alcohol altogether, but it does mean approaching it with awareness. A single practical shift makes a difference. Avoid drinking before tasks that demand balance, such as walking outdoors, climbing stairs, or moving at night in low light. Most importantly, never mix alcohol with common nighttime sedatives or diuretics, which already increase nighttime bathroom trips and dizziness. If alcohol is a regular part of life, it is worth asking a doctor or pharmacist about personal fall risk mitigation strategies. Small proactive steps can save enormous setbacks later. The sobering truth is that alcohol's effect as a fall risk multiplier often outweighs its value as a moment of comfort. The drink itself may not be the hazard. It's the stumble that follows in the quietest, most ordinary moments, on familiar staircases in well-lit kitchens, within the very routines where seniors expect safety. For older adults, the most life-altering dangers do not appear in bars or crowded parties, but in the living rooms and hallways of their own homes. And yet, alcohol's risks don't end with balance and bone. The body in later years navigates more than muscle strength and coordination. It manages a full schedule of prescriptions that many rely on every day. When alcohol collides with those medications, it doesn't just magnify fall risks. It can completely change how the body responds in ways far more dangerous than most people realize. When alcohol and medications collide, what happens when that evening drink enters a body already managing a lineup of prescriptions? For many older adults, it's not just mixing alcohol with food, it's mixing it with medicine. And when alcohol collides with medications, the results can be far less predictable than most expect. By the late 60s, most people take at least one prescribed drug every day, and many take several. In fact, research shows that a very large majority of adults over 65 rely on medications regularly, and about 80% take at least one drug that has the potential to interact with alcohol. These aren't occasional extras. They're daily tools for keeping blood pressure under control, protecting the heart, managing blood sugar, or easing pain. The body adjusts to that routine carefully. Once alcohol enters, it can disrupt how those drugs are absorbed, broken down, or eliminated. The problem doesn't lie in whether a person is responsible with drinking. Even small amounts of alcohol interact in ways that make certain medications more potent, less predictable, or flat-out dangerous. Think of this not as casual sipping added onto a pill regimen, but as two sets of chemicals colliding inside one body. To make it clear, here are the major drug groups where caution is most critical. First, sedatives such as benzodiazepines and the so-called Z drugs, often prescribed for anxiety or sleep. Alcohol shares the same sedative pathways in the nervous system. Taken together, these combine into stronger than expected drowsiness, loss of balance, memory problems, and even slowed breathing at night. The practical step: if you use these medications, ask your prescriber directly whether even occasional alcohol is safe. For many, the risks outweigh the momentary relaxation. Second, opioids prescribed for pain. On their own, they already suppress breathing and dull alertness. Alcohol amplifies those effects, making accidental overdose or dangerously slowed respiration far more likely. This isn't about heavy drinking. Even a couple of drinks with an opioid in the system can be enough to tip into severe risk. The action point: never assume just one drink is safe if you're using opioids. Consult your clinician first. Third, anticoagulants such as warfarin or newer blood thinners. These medications prevent clots that could cause strokes or heart attacks. But alcohol thins blood on its own. Together, they can magnify bleeding risk to the point where even a small fall or minor bruise leads to excessive bleeding that is difficult to stop. The safest approach: if you're on a blood thinner, bring up alcohol use at your next appointment and ask flatly whether any amount is safe for you. Fourth, common pain relievers and over-the-counter drugs like acetaminophen and NSAIDs. Alcohol competes in the liver with acetaminophen and taxes liver pathways already working hard. Combined, they raise the risk of serious liver injury. NSAIDs, such as ibuprofen, bring another hazard. Alcohol irritates the stomach lining, and together with NSAIDs, they can trigger internal bleeding in the digestive tract. The practical move here: if you drink at all, avoid mixing those moments with pain relievers. And if regular pain medication is part of your routine, confirm with your pharmacist what's safe. Fifth, medications for diabetes and high blood pressure. Alcohol lowers blood sugar on its own and can mask early signs of hypoglycemia like shakes or dizziness. Pair that with insulin or other glucose-lowering drugs, and blood sugar can plummet dangerously low without warning. for blood pressure drugs. Alcohol sometimes amplifies their effect, driving blood pressure too low and triggering faintness or sudden collapse. The step here is simple. Sync your alcohol questions with your primary care provider, especially if you take pills morning and evening, because timing matters as much as dosage. These core categories cover the vast majority of dangerous overlaps for seniors. They illustrate how different parts of the body, brain, liver, circulatory system, metabolism can all be undermined by alcohol's interference. And the risks are not uniform. Even within one person, the interaction might feel mild on Monday and severe on Thursday. What looks like random inconsistency is really how unpredictable chemical overlap plays out in a body that clears alcohol more slowly with age. Over-the-counter medications complicate things further. Cold and allergy products often contain antihistamines or cough suppressants that already make people feel drowsy. Add alcohol, and those drowsy effects multiply. Meanwhile, the liver processes many of these drugs through the same pathways that ethanol uses, meaning both substances compete. That competition increases the likelihood of side effects and weakens the body's ability to clear either one efficiently. So even medicines people consider harmless in small doses shouldn't automatically be assumed safe with a drink. This is why no blanket rule works for everyone. Some clinicians might approve small, occasional alcohol use for certain patients if medications are stable and risks are low. In other cases, even half a beer is unsafe. Drugs used for treating alcohol use disorder itself, like naltrexone or acamprosate, require case-by-case judgment too, especially for older adults. For patients on alternatives such as buprenorphine, the guidance is the same. Don't assume safety. Ask a professional to weigh risks and benefits for your specific situation. The larger truth here is that alcohol's impact in later life doesn't come from the drink alone. It comes from the system it enters, a body whose metabolism has slowed and whose health depends on medications that interact in countless ways. Independence and daily stability often rest on those pills working exactly as intended. Alcohol doesn't respect those careful balances. For older adults, that means the risk is less about too much drinking and more about any amount combined with the wrong medication. So if there's one action step to take seriously, it's this. Make a full list of every prescription, supplement, and over-the-counter medicine you use. Bring that list to your next appointment. Then sit down with your doctor or pharmacist and ask plainly, is any amount of alcohol safe with these? That single question takes abstract fears and turns them into clear, personal guidance. Because while the body may warn you with dizziness or sedation, not all risks announce themselves. Some creep in quietly, and their earliest signs are harder to blame on alcohol. And that builds toward an even subtler problem, what alcohol can do to the aging brain itself, often before anyone connects the dots. Silent stress on the aging brain. For older adults, one of the least visible impacts of alcohol isn't on the liver or the bones, it's on the brain. This is the silent stress few people talk about, the way alcohol quietly accelerates the very changes aging brains are already experiencing.